Okay, let's kick things off. Welcome everyone to the Switched Online webinar. Today we'll be talking about ECO4 with Switchee's Advisor service and how that can deliver tailored, fully funded retrofits. Just a bit of housekeeping and introductions first. So I'm Oliver Shaw. I'm the head of product marketing here at Switchee, and I work on launching exciting features that we have, but also on the funding schemes there where Switchee is an applicable measure. So that includes in England with the Warm Homes Social Housing Fund, in Wales with ORP, the Scottish Social Housing Net Zero Heat Fund, and of course, crucially, ECO4, which is applicable in England, Scotland, and Wales. With me today is Clint Walker. He's from Eco Approach, one of our largest partners in the Eco Advisor service. And yeah, Clint has seen it all, worked on many retrofit projects across Eco and other funding schemes as well. And we'll tell you a little bit more when he speaks later about those experiences and his approach to ensuring success there. Now, just before we properly get into the webinar, there's going to be a couple of poll questions just to gauge everyone's kind of familiarity with ECO4 as a scheme. Should pop up on your screen now. So the first question, have you already accessed ECO4 funding for any of your properties? Had a few votes come in. Just we'll wait to see if there's a way in which this is clearly swinging. So I think just judging from that poll there, got sort of 38% that have already explored it. But actually, a good majority of you either just looking into it or not sure how to start with it. So this is going to be a really useful webinar for you. Fantastic. Moving on. For any of you guys not familiar with Switchee, Switchee essentially is at its core is a data and insights business, and we're focused on the social housing sector. And the way we collect insights is through our devices, most commonly our smart thermostat device, which is really popular with residents in that it provides smart schedules, temperature, and app functionality as well, but for housing providers also measures humidity, heating use, and more to power data insights that give housing providers a really good understanding of how homes are performing, what's going well, what's not going well, and what the residents' experience is like. You can also connect a whole host of different devices together and measure lots of things, including energy use, air quality, solar panel performance, just as examples as well. Now onto the main piece. What is ECO? So ECO is a government funding scheme that aims to reduce CO2 from domestic energy use and tackle fuel poverty at the same time. And ECO is a little bit different from some of the other funding schemes that are out there, in that it works by basically placing a legal obligation on energy suppliers to have targets of energy efficiency measures that are going to be delivered to domestic energy users. Domestic energy users, of course, people living in homes. And each supplier, whether that's Octopus Energy, Scottish Power, British Gas, have targets for that based on their share of the UK market. And ECO's been going for a little while, since 2013, with various waves, and the very latest one, ECO4, is yeah, the largest one yet, and is finishing in March 2026. So it's a really important opportunity to make use of right now while it is still open, and you can be delivering these retrofits for residents. ECO4 is kind of unique in terms of the qualification mechanism as well. So it's not just a social housing funding scheme. So in the private sector, anyone that's living in a property that has an EPC rating of D or below and meets the income thresholds of having 31,000 or below, or some other means tested benefit criteria, is eligible for this type of funding. But the good news for social housing is that eligibility is really simple. Homes that have an EPC rating of D or below automatically qualify. So there's no additional paperwork that's required in terms of income checks or anything else like that. It's really just the EPC rating that is the main thing to look out for. And the funding kind of works in a type of point-based system based on the improvements. So EPC ratings are underpinned by SAP points, and before any retrofit works are done for eco, a survey is essentially done to determine what the SAP points are for that particular home, and then based on the number of points that are improved during the retrofit. So say that there's a number of points for solar panels, heat pumps, loft insulation. That is then the points that the home is improved by is what is converted into a funding that then is given back to basically pay for those retrofit measures. So yeah, there's a before and after, and it's somewhat based on what is viable and what is realistic for that property, based on what the cost is going to be and the amount that you're going to get. And I think all of this kind of leads to the big question of decarbonisation at the moment in the social housing sector. So it's very expensive, in short. Moody's have estimated that it's going to cost around £18 billion just in England alone to get social homes to EPCC. Obviously, the kind of minimum target that we're familiar with in the sector. So yeah, schemes like this are obviously invaluable just as a source of funding for reaching that target with something that can be really quite expensive. And then the second piece, of course, is fuel poverty, one of the core components of why ECO was set up as well. And we know from NEA's data from 2025 that 6.1 million UK households are in fuel poverty at the moment, and energy bills are obviously very high still. And there's signs that they won't be falling significantly in the longer term. So schemes like this that reduce the cost for people to heat their homes has a really valuable dual effect of also just making that easier for individuals as they get through the cost of living crisis. So in terms of eco and getting set up straight away, I think there's just a few challenges that are worth keeping front of mind. There can be a bit of complexity. First off, in this SAT point measurement that I measured at the start. And then also understanding what might be the most suitable measures for a home to kind of fund that retrofit measure sustainably. And then I think the other difficulty, of course, is social housing providers. There's lots of funding schemes at the moment, and I know a lot of people have invested a lot in the application and delivery of the warm homes funding, and actually having a separate dedicated focus for eco isn't always a realistic option. And then there's making sure that eco actually delivers success for residents as well. So not just getting funding and doing works, but actually making sure that residents are brought along on that journey. So engaged from the start, but also afterwards, really engaged to ensure that they're getting the most out of their improved home, and that it's definitely saving them money with the way that they're using that new home as well. So that kind of that problem space and what we've got, and yeah, our work anyway with social housing providers in decarbonisation and the number of projects that we're involved on there has kind of really motivated us to kick off the Eco Advisor service, which is providing fully funded ECO4 retrofits that are tailored for each home, but include an end-to-end project management and expert resident engagement that means that social housing landlords can achieve their net zero goals, but also improve lives of the residents living in those homes as well. And we work a little bit differently. First off, identifying homes with yourselves to make sure that those are the ones that are going to have the most impact for residents. Delivering best-in-class implementation with our trusted partners, and you'll hear a little bit more from that from Clint in a second. But also, given that we're a data and insights business, using the data that we collect from the Switchee device, which is installed at the time of the retrofit, to deliver insights that ensure that that is having impact for the residents. So, for example, in a large retrofit project we did with Riverside Homes, we found that actually after a big project where kind of ventilation was a necessary part of ensuring that that was successful as well, actually 80% of the fans there had been turned off by residents, and that actually what was needed was educating the residents on the importance of doing that with a home that now had much more air tightness. So oh yeah, we had a lot of success after that sort of educational program, and that it fully ensured that there was impact for residents at the end of that process. And this slide here really just gives you an indication of what happens in an eco journey to ensure success. I think the takeaways are that with the way that we've designed this to make it as easy as possible, actually what we only need from housing providers is an expression of interest in this, and to provide a full list of their properties that are EPC D or below. And from that, with the Eco Advisor service, we can go on to find and determine the scope of the project, match you with an appropriate partner, model that in terms of what retrofits are going to be viable and successful in those homes, present that back, set up logistics, present the proposed work, start a date of outreach, do that outreach, so making sure that residents are brought along on that journey, do those in-person surveys, and then commence retrofit and ensure that there's success with those afterwards using data insight validation. So with that, I'll pass on to my co-presenter, Clint, who will give you a little bit more insight into how that works on the ground.
Hi, good morning all. Thanks very much, Ollie. Great introduction into what the Switchee service is going to be. My purpose here today is to describe and explain a little bit about what we are and who we are at Eco Approach, and how we partner with Switchee to offer this service and our input into the industry overall. It's a collection of our previous experience, my previous experience, and hopefully it will give you a little bit of an insight into how we operate within the eco-funded space. So I'm Clint, Head of Partnerships at Eco Approach. We're a resident-first retrofit delivery partner, and we work alongside councils, housing providers to unlock funding and deliver energy upgrades that are done right and done right first time. And my role here is to build the kind of collaborations that cut through red tape, simplify the operational delivery, and make sure residents, first and foremost, are looked after throughout. And part of it is I'm here to help you, anybody watching and anybody interacting with the industry and ourselves, to get the most out of schemes like ECO4, GBIS, any SHDF funding that you might still have, One Homes Plan, and various other funded streams within the retrofit industry. And it's about making like your next retrofit program feel like progress and not a pain. A little bit about our business. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, so a little bit, we're helping social landlords like yourselves to access and spend the social housing decarbonisation fund with 2.2 and some warm homes funding. A couple of other elements there around Cicero mental health toolbox. We recognise the strength of technology and we leverage it to our advantage. It helps systemize. It helps reduce that pain in an otherwise complex industry. And a little bit there around the mental health toolbox, which is recognition that we like to focus on our team. A strong, well looked after team always operates better in this industry, and it's something we're very much focused on. Okay, a very simple run through about around what we feel a good supply chain partner might look like, and possibly what you should look for in future partners. I'll try and break it down into its individual sets, and some of this is a little bit of a playful approach to it, but something that we do champion at Eco Approach. The first one here is competence. It shouldn't be a surprise. If we move on to the next slide, please, it shouldn't be a surprise that competence is the first foundational step that you should be looking for in a partner. And there's some steps there around making sure compliance is the minimum. It's not a standard we should all be hoping for. It's the absolute minimum. We should all be raising the bar on what that compliance looks like. We should understand the schemes inside out, take the time to understand how ECO4 works, the funding rules, the eligibility criteria, archetypes, anything that is around understanding and assessing what properties should look like, making sure we're PAS 2030 certified, that all the compliance, the certification is in place, and embracing that whole house thinking. So every single property we go to, it's about fabric first, whole house. How can we reduce and improve that resident's life in a complete nutshell? It's not about going in for a quick win and moving on. It's making sure that we are a partner that you can trust will look after your entire housing stock in the way it's supposed to be done within this industry. We should always think beyond the measure. Think about the resident. I think great installers talk to people like humans. We're polite, we're clean, we're respectful to people's homes, and we should always be explaining what's happening and why it's happening. A good resident experience makes your work memorable and gets you invited back, and it should always be right first time every time as an absolute minimum. Your mindset and our mindset. I heard this a little bit of a time ago in some previous experience, and it's always stuck with me. And if you look out for it, you can't escape this methodology. It's a mindset that we try and hone in on and drive within this business around making sure you are above the line in your thinking, above the line in your operations. So it's no secret that this industry can sometimes be challenging. You might walk into the office in the morning and there are various onslaughts of problems that might face you in the morning. And we as leaders and we as people who are managing our teams and our people and our contractors, it might be that there's a particular problem at one of your properties, one of your residents' properties. We drive an above the line mindset. So if we're faced with a particular problem, we always focus on the can do, the solution. What is it that's happened that we can now move past, rather than driving a blame culture, focusing on the problems. And as we're starting to build what this picture looks like, we've got the competence, we've then got a positive above the line mindset, which starts to drive a really good supply chain partner. And if you're on here now, you've probably dialed in, it's now 20 past 11. No doubt you will have faced some challenges within your own remit, within your own office, whether you're in the office or working from home. Where are you right now? Is it something you actively think about? It's a mindset shift we've driven in this business, and it's elevated what we do because most of the team are operating above the line. So yeah, I'd ask you as well, playfully, where are you at right now? Are you above the line? It's a real mindset shift. Next, please. Very playfully, mental fortitude here. This industry has its challenges. You need to be resilient, and there's a carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. So we know that carrots are quite tough, and when they've been cooked, are much softer. This industry can take people who are really tough, resilient characters and break them. An egg goes in soft and comes hard. So we know that quite often people can come into this industry quite naive and inexperienced, and through experience and time served, they're much harder and much more resilient as a result of it. And the coffee bean sits in water and affects the water surrounding it and can be quite infectious. So very playfully, I do realise, but the mental fortitude that's required in this industry needs us all to be a little bit of all those three. We need to be tough in some circumstances and have tricky conversations. We need to recognise that we're always able to learn and apply ourselves differently in this industry to succeed. And again, look after your residents, make the ECO4 scheme work. And the coffee bean, if we are applying a good mindset, being happy people, good people, competent people, then that'll positively affect everyone around us. And that's what we're always aiming for, to leave something a little bit better than we found it in the first place. So again, a little bit playful, but when you're looking towards eco approach, it's not just about competence. That's a very big part of it. That's the minimum. But as well as that, we build on it with a really good attitude, a positive attitude, a can-do attitude, and we just will not give up until we succeed. And that's the mental fortitude piece. Move on, please. Building on that story, we've got our competence. You've got your supply chain partners' competence. You've got an above-the-line attitude. You've got the mental fortitude. You then need to build a really nice, robust process. It should be planned well, designed well. It should be implemented well. And that can include various things such as pre-install energy advice. It must be impartial, recorded, evidenced. We need to be able to explain all eligible measures and not just push the easy wins. We should give the residents advice to make informed decision as part of that planning process, and backs up an informed consent on your lodgement documents. We need to complete a PAS 2035 compliant assessment and design, which means the full RD-SAP model and assessment, occupancy assessments, conditional surveys, appointing a fully signed off, approved retrofit coordinator who's independently run and managed. We need to make sure that measures are eligible on the properties, minimum SAP uplifts, and which kind of measures we're going to be installing. All the way through to those installation standards, the documentation and evidence, all the way through to that lodgement process. So there's a real lot that's involved. The supply chain partner you choose determines that success, because the link between assessment and coordination and installation can be really tricky, and it's where a lot of social housing landlords, my light's just gone off, and landlords fall down. We find that when we come along and try and leverage some ECO4 funding for social housing and landlords, we're able to leverage some ECO4 funding, which wasn't previously understood. And I think some of us scored in the earlier survey that they'd not potentially had any experience with ECO4. That's where we can come in and help you leverage that process. We take that and make it easy in partnership with Switchee, and make sure it's planned well, designed well, and installed well. Team collaboration. Your circus, your clowns, I guess. This is about how we lead as a business and collaborate together with not just the people within our control, but also the industry. I'm around quite often at various places, conferences, roundtables, discussions, talking about how we can take this industry forward. It's not just about leading, it's connecting with your people. And we hire for attitude and then train for skill. In my experience, it's easier to find somebody who's had a bit of experience and then difficult to try and demonstrate that right attitude. It's easier to hire for the attitude and then upskill if needs. We talk about process and making sure you're a process driven business. Once you understand what it is you're doing, then using lean methodologies to build a very smooth, slick process that looks after residents every single time. And we should always protect the culture, even when it's an awkward conversation. If you're having if there's a particular situation where you believe your process isn't working and it's going to be an awkward conversation, we'll have that to make sure the culture is always protected and we're always driving towards our objective, which is that fuel poverty reduction, carbon reduction, which is the ultimate goal of this ECO4 scheme, this government funded scheme. And a burnt out team will not deliver. We are a national installation business, and often that means some travel. We make sure that our team are looked after and we collaborate well together. And just a little bit of a roundup, be above the line. If you work with us, you should expect us to demonstrate these. I'm quite happy to be held account to them all. You are gaining a compliant and a competent business. We align ourselves with people who do the same, and we use various tools that are around us. Cicero, very quickly, humans forget 90% of what they've learned if they don't apply it within a week. So it makes sense to utilize new AI technology to help and supplement that knowledge. And yeah, be part of someone's mental health journey. That's if you can subscribe to the mental health toolbox, it supplements and adds to the message. So thank you very much. I hope this provided a little bit of useful information. I'll hand back to Ollie. And if you do have any questions around what I've spoken about or anything ECO4 orientated, then I'm going to hang around for as long as needed, and I'll be happy to have a conversation.
Thank you, Clint. I didn't mention this at the start, but I see some people have managed to find it anyway, that in the top right-hand corner, there's a questions box. And yeah, if you've got any questions on what we've shown you today, that is the place to ask any and all things that come to mind at this particular point. And I'll just start off maybe with some of the ones that we've got here already. The first one, Clint, it would be what's the most common types of retrofit that you see being installed in social homes for eco funding?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've experienced a range of different archetypes, different types of properties. We operate within the private sector, the rented sector, the social housing sector. So we go up and down the country. We see properties such as terraced homes who want a full retrofit, and that might involve external or internal wall insulation, solar PV, air source heat pumps. We've got a few projects on now and in the pipeline where we're going into bigger properties, such as an over 50s home where there's probably 40 to 50 and upwards homes, flats, and they might be having a full solar PV array on the roof. There's one last week where there was 300 panels placed on the roof, and we've completely redone the insulation side of it and also the heating. So the answer really in our experience, and probably in a few people that are listening, is there's quite a wide variety. The opportunity there is you can and we can help you leverage social housing, SHDF funding, wave 2, any upcoming wave 3. Often we have people come along and say, well, we've got some wave 3 funding of, I don't know, let's say 2 million. We're willing to put 2 million in ourselves. So you've got a total pot of 4. And what actually happens is we run through a set of properties and we're able to leverage some ECO4 funding against that and reduce the input that you need to put in, which means saved pennies in the bank to put towards something more appropriate, and we leverage that ECO4 fund that your residents are eligible for. So to recap, lots of properties, terraced, mids, commercial sized, residential homes, flats, a whole range of things.
Yeah, I think that second point there, Clint, might be worth going into a bit more detail on, because we've had another question about that, which is the blended funding piece. Because I know a lot of
Yeah.
social landlords haven't got quite as much in the Warm Homes Social Housing Fund as perhaps was expected when they applied, and that there is actually a very easy way in which ECO4 funding, which is fully funded, can be blended with that kind of 50% contribution funding from Warm Homes. Is it perhaps maybe worth talking about the process for that briefly?
Yeah, so we are able to take your perhaps a sample set of your housing stock. Let's say there's 100 properties. We can take those 100 properties and run them through our assessment methodology, running through each property's EPC, eligibility criteria, and various other elements around the RDSAP before an end. And quite often, what we're able to do is push that through the ECO4 social housing funding stream. If you're trying to consider using your whole allocation for all properties, you won't need to, because there's a good chunk of those properties that can be taken care of and upgraded using ECO4 social housing that you may not have even considered before. Or if you have, you're just not quite sure how to get that and link it up. And I guess that's what we were talking about before, in terms of what you should expect in terms of installation standards, that pre-install energy advice, understanding what the eligible measures are for that property, what the full RDSAP assessment is. It's quite a deep question, but really we can spend some time talking further, and it's just understanding, are your residents eligible? Chances are they might be. Is the property eligible? And if it is, we'll complete that full assessment and design, consider what the measures and the measure eligibility is, and then move forward with that installation.
Super. And we just had one come in on solar PV. I think saying that solar PV is probably one of the more straightforward types of measures, but maybe a bit of a discussion on experience for things like heat pump systems and external wall uh, insulation, where that can be a more of a process of upheaval. Is that, Clint, for yourself, is that one that you handle differently than a solar PV project? Or
So are we asking you, how does the solar PV installation and heat pump installation work?
yeah, I think maybe I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's almost like and we've had another question about resident engagement here, and perhaps it comes into it of one being one where a resident is more disrupted by a bigger scale
Yeah.
retrofit
Okay.
versus solar PV, which is a relatively straightforward um, type
Yeah.
of
Okay.
retrofit
Yeah. Good
operation.
question. And it's something that's quite important. If I touch on the resident engagement side of it, which is arguably one of the most important elements of this, it's the beginning part of the process. So and actually, it's a process I like to be involved with, and often I personally, I'm up and down the country, stood in front of residents. It was only last week, the week before, I was at one of our properties, stood in a car park with a full discussion with residents, going to homes and saying we've got a nice welcome pack with what to expect from your solar PV, guides, what it involves, and we've got to have that open, honest conversation with the resident at the very beginning to say, we're putting in solar panels on your roof, we're going to overhaul your heating, and we're going to put some insulation in. And there will be a little bit of disruption. It is a little bit of an invasive install, because we're overhauling your heating. We're going to deal with some electrics. We're going to put some messy install in terms of plaster boarding on some of your walls inside the room. So let's consider how we protect your home. And we have that in-depth conversation right at the very beginning, and get their engagement in it and teach them why we're doing that. Because quite often, when you talk about energy and how much the bills are at the moment, I've lost count of how many times people sit down and say, "Do you know what, Clint? I'm not even sure how I'm going to pay my next bill because it's gone. It's so expensive." And it's really nice to be able to be part of something that says, "You know what? Let's complete this install. Solar PV, air source heat pump, insulation. Once it's done, you're going to be living in a home that's cheaper to run. It's going to be saving you money on your bills, and you're just going to be so much more comfortable." And that's quite a nice thing to be able to say. Now, the other question around, is it invasive? It is invasive. It's not catastrophic. It will cause a little bit of a disruption in the customer's home, the resident's home, but with the right conversation, the right information pack provided at the very beginning, um, it can be had a lot easier. If you don't do that resident engagement piece, I think about this myself. If somebody comes to my home and says, "Hi Clint, good morning. We're going to be doing this today," if I don't know anything about it or why that's being done for me, then I might not be as engaged as another approach where I'm spoken to a few times before the event. I've got an information pack, a welcome pack. Um, it's much better. So I guess I hope the answers are yes, it is a little bit invasive, but with the right conversation, it's a bit of a killer combination because you've got a beautiful new heating system. It's an air source heat pump. The country's going that way. If fitted really well, it's a brilliant heating system. Coupled with that is a solar panel array on your roof. That will reduce the cost of your electrics right down. There's lots of benefits as to why you should be having that. And then the outer envelope of the home is insulated, and that might be internal wall or external wall, and that'll reduce the heat leaving your property. So those three together with a good ventilation strategy, it's a killer combination, and it's one that we champion because it's one of the few great ways to enter a property and leave it in a good uh, retrofitted future-proof property.
Absolutely. And I think when I just cycle round as well to the kind of one of the main aims of the Eco Advisor service as well, which is, of course, there's that resident engagement piece beforehand, finding out what type of communication is most suitable for that resident and keeping them informed and bringing them on the journey with that retrofit process. But there's also the point afterwards of being able to see that data and be able to ensure that has landed and that has gone through to the residents. So I think you mentioned heat pumps, and I think heat pumps can be a challenging area because there's that logic of, oh, I want to put the heating up when I'm warm, when I'm cold, but the heat pumps are a different type of usage really, and this sort of constant temperature setting isn't something that people can really get their heads around necessarily very easily. That it's actually the most efficient way to operate that. So I think the fact that we can see directly afterwards, okay, these properties are all using their heat pump to in the perfect way. They've got a pre-built schedule turned on with their Switchee thermostat, but this set of residents are using it in a more sporadic way. What can we do to nudge those residents in a kind of kind and understanding way to be like, you can be saving X amount of on your energy bills if you just set a constant temperature schedule, and you can do that with one click of the button on the device. Because I think um, it's definitely, we don't want residents to have that experience where they install a heat pump and through the usage of it, it ends up costing them more when really it's something that should be saving them a huge amount on their bills.
Yeah, and I think that's why the killer combination of that solar PV install at the same time offsets some of the potential costs you're talking about there.
Yeah, yeah, as
So
well.
together, it's a really great installation.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a question come in just about clarification on the advisory and end-to-end management of this. I think just to say here that the Eco Advisor service is a collaboration between Switchee and Eco partners such as Eco approach to manage that entire process from end to end, so that the housing provider is informed and kept in the loop in terms of, these are the properties, this is what we're suggesting, this is the progress on them. But in terms of actually handling the installation of the devices, the resident communications, that is something that the housing provider can either be involved in terms of framing of that language, or is something that we've got experience in delivering successful projects in. So not something that they need to necessarily do themselves. And I think that looks like that is it for questions. If there's anything else last minute, do send one through. But if not, I'd like to thank everyone for coming along, and point people to our next webinar in July. And I think very tied in some ways to the topic that we've talked about today of retrofit and overheating, and ensuring that when retrofits are done, they don't create overheating situations, but also separately being aware of overheating as a potential issue that is going to likely come into regulation in the future. So one that we should start thinking about now, and where we can see overheating, what is it that we can do about that? So yeah, the QR code on the screen if you'd like to join, and yeah, looking forward to seeing you there. And thanks a lot everyone for joining this webinar. If you could take a moment to complete our survey afterwards, that would be really appreciated. We love getting feedback to understand how we can continue to shape these monthly webinars to make sure that they're delivering maximum impact for you. But in the meantime, thanks a lot. If you know the Eco Advisor service is something that you'd be interested in joining, please do reach out to us. And like I said, it's as simple as showing interest and providing a list of homes, and we can from there guide you in terms of which homes are going to be most eligible, and what type of a scale that we're talking about being viable for those homes. So yeah, nothing to lose. March 2026 is the deadline for ECO4, so please make sure that it's something that you take advantage of if you're not doing it already. So thanks a lot then, and see you soon.